Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Translated by Constance Garrett. I've cocked my cock sparrow. So you did believe it before, if now you believe less than ever? Not at all, cried Zametov, obviously embarrassed. Have you been frightening me so as to lead up to this? You don't believe it then? What were you talking about behind my back when I went out of the police station? And why did the explosive lieutenant question me after I fainted? Hey there, he shouted to the waiter, getting up and taking his cap. How much? 30 kopecks, the latter replied, running up. And there is 20 kopecks vodka. See, what a lot of money. He held out his shaking hand to Zametov with notes in it. Red notes and blue. 25 rubles. Where did I get them? And where did my new clothes come from? You know I had not a kopeck. You've cross-examined my landlady. I'll be bound. Well, that's enough. A secuse, till we meet again. He went out, trembling all over from a sort of wild hysterical sensation, in which there was an element of insufferable rapture. Yet he was gloomy and terribly tired. His face was twisted as after a fit. His fatigue increased rapidly. Any shock, any irritating sensation stimulated and revived his energies at once, but his strength failed as quickly when the stimulus was removed. Zametov, left alone, sat for a long time in the same place, plunged in thought. Raskolnikov had unwittingly worked a revolution in his brain on a certain point and had made up his mind for him conclusively. Ilya Petrovich is a blockhead, he decided. Raskolnikov had hardly opened the door of the restaurant when he stumbled against Razumihin on the steps. They did not see each other till they almost knocked against each other. For a moment they stood looking each other up and down. Razumihin was greatly astounded, then real anger gleamed fiercely in his eyes. So here you are, he shouted at the top of his voice. You ran away from your bed, and here I've been looking for you under the sofa. We went up to the garret. I almost beat Nastasia on your account. And here he is after all. Rodya. What is the meaning of it? Tell me the whole truth. Confess. Do you hear? It means that I am sick to death of you all, and I want to be alone. Raskolnikov answered calmly. Alone? When you are not able to walk, when your face is as white as a sheet, and you are grasping for breath. Idiot. What have you been doing in Palais de Cristal? Own up at once. Let me go, said Raskolnikov and tried to pass him. This was too much for Razumihin. He gripped him firmly by the shoulder. Let you go? You dare tell me to let you go? Do you know what I'll do with you directly? I'll pick you up, tie you up in a bundle, carry you home under my arm and lock you up. Listen, Razumihin, Raskolnikov began quietly, apparently calm. Can't you see that I don't want your benevolence? A strange desire you have to shower benefits on a man who curses them, who feels them a burden in fact. Why did you seek me out at the beginning of my illness? Maybe I was very glad to die. Didn't I tell you plainly enough today that you were torturing me, that I was sick of you? You seem to want to torture people. I assure you that all that is seriously hindering my recovery because it's continually irritating me. You saw Zozimov went away just now to avoid irritating me. You leave me alone too, for goodness sake. What right have you indeed to keep me by force? Don't you see that I am in possession of all my faculties now? How How can I persuade you not to persecute me with your kindness? I may be ungrateful, I may be mean. Only let me be. For God's sake, let me be. Let me be, let me be. He began calmly, gloating beforehand over the venomous phrases he was about to utter, but finishing, panting for breath in a frenzy, as he had been with Lucihin. Razumihin stood a moment, thought, and let his hand drop. Well, go to hell then, he said gently and thoughtfully. Stay, he roared as Raskolnikov was about to move. Listen to me. Let me tell you that you are all a set of babbling, posing idiots. If you've any little trouble, you brood over it like a hen over an egg. And you are plagiarists even in that. There isn't a sign of independent life in you. You are made of spermaceti ointment, and you've lymph in your veins instead of blood. I don't believe in any one of you. In any circumstances, the first thing for all of you is to be unlike a human being. Stop, he cried with redoubled fury, noticing that Raskolnikov was again making a movement. Hear me out. You know I'm having a housewarming this evening. I dare say they've arrived by now, and I left my uncle there. I just ran in to receive the guest. And if you weren't a fool, a common fool, a perfect fool, if you were an original instead of a translation, you see, Rodya, I recognize you are a clever fellow, but you're a fool. And if you weren't a fool, you'd come round to me this evening instead of wearing out your boots in the street. Since you have gone out, there's no help for it. I'd give you a snug, easy chair. My landlady has one. A cup of tea. Company. Or you could lie on the sofa. Anyway, you would be with us. Zosimov will be there too. Will you come? No. Rubbish. Razumihin shouted out of patience. How do you know? You can't answer yourself. You don't know anything about it. Thousands of times I've fought tooth and nail with people and run back to them afterwards. One feels ashamed and goes back to a man. So remember. Potchinkov's house on the third story. Why, Mr. Razumihin, I do believe you'd let anyone beat you from sheer benevolence. Beat? Whom? Me? I'd twist his nose off at the mere idea. Potchinkov's house 47. Babushin's flat. I shall not come, Razumihin. Raskolnikov turned and walked away. I bet you will, Razumihin shouted after him. I refuse to know you if you don't. Stay. Hey, is Zametov in there? Yes. Did you see him? Yes. Talk to him? Yes. About what? Confound you. Don't tell me then. Potchinkov's house 47. Babushkin's flat. Remember. Raskolnikov walked on and turned the corner into Sadovy Street. Razumihin looked after him thoughtfully. Then, with a wave of his hand, he went into the house but stopped short of the stairs. Confound it, he went on almost aloud. He talked sensibly, but yet, I'm a fool. As if madmen didn't talk sensibly. And this was just what Zosimov seemed afraid of. He struck his finger on his forehead. What if? How could I let him go off alone? He may drown himself. Ah, what a blunder. I can't. And he ran back to overtake Raskolnikov, but there was no trace of him. What a curse! He returned with rapid steps to Palais de Cristal to question Zametov. Raskolnikov walked straight to the bridge, stood in the middle, and leaning both elbows on the rail, stared into the distance. On parting with Razumihin, he felt so much weaker that he could scarcely reach this place. He longed to sit or lie down somewhere in the street. Bending over the water, he gazed mechanically at the last pink flush of the sunset, at the row of houses growing dark in the gathering twilight, at one distant attic window on the left bank, flashing as though on fire in the last rays of the setting sun, at the darkening water of the canal, and the water seemed to catch his attention. At last, red circles appeared before his eyes. The houses seemed moving, the passers-by, the canal banks, the carriages all danced before his eyes. Suddenly he started, saved again, perhaps from swooning by an uncanny and hideous sight. He became aware of someone standing on the right side of him. He looked and saw a tall woman with a kerchief on her head, with a long yellow wasted face and red sunken eyes. She was looking straight at him, but obviously she saw nothing and recognized no one. Suddenly she leaned her right hand on the parapet, lifted her right leg over the railing, then her left, and threw herself in the canal. The filthy water parted and swallowed up its victim for a moment, but an instant later the drowning woman floated to the surface, moving slowly with the current, her head and legs in the water, her skirt inflated like a balloon over her back. A woman drowning, shouted dozens of voices. People ran up. Both banks were thronged with spectators. On the bridge, people crowded about Raskolnikov, pressing up behind him. Mercy on it! It's our Afrosinia! A woman cried tearfully close by. Mercy! Save her! Kind people, pull her out! A boat! Was shouted in the crowd, but there was no need of a boat. A policeman ran down the steps to the canal, threw off his greatcoat and his boots, and rushed into the water. It was easy to reach her. She floated within a couple of yards from the steps. He caught hold of her clothes with his right hand, and his left seized a pole with which a comrade held out and pulled him. The drowning woman was pulled out at once. They laid her on the granite pavement of the embankment. She soon recovered consciousness, raised her head, sat up and began sneezing and coughing, stupidly wiping her wet dress with her hands. She said nothing. She's drunk herself out of her senses, the same woman's voice wailed at her side. Out of her senses. The other day she tried to hang herself. We cut her down. I ran out to the shop just now, left my little girl to look after her. But here she is in trouble again. A neighbor, a gentleman, a neighbor. We live close by, the second house from the end. See yonder. The crowd broke up. The police still remained round the woman. Someone mentioned the police station. Raskolnikov looked on with a strange sensation of indifference and apathy. He felt disgusted. No, that's loathsome. Water. It's not good enough, he muttered to himself. Nothing will come of it, he added. No use to wait. What about the police office? And why isn't Zametov at the police office? The police office is open till 10 o'clock. He turned his back to the railing and looked about him. Very well then, he said resolutely. He moved from the bridge and walked in the direction of the police office. His heart felt hollow and empty. He did not want to think. Even his depression had passed. There was not a trace now of the energy with which he had set out to make an end of it all. Complete apathy had succeeded to him. Well, it's a way out of it, he thought, walking slowly and listlessly along the canal bank. Anyway, I'll make an end for I want to. But is it a way out? What does it matter? There'll be the square yard of space. But what an end! Is it really the end? Shall I tell them or not? Ah, damn. How tired I am. If I could find somewhere to sit or lie down soon. What I am most ashamed of is its being so stupid. But I don't care about that either. What idiotic ideas come to one's head. To reach the police office, he had to go straight forward and take the second turning to the left. It was only a few paces away, but at the first turning, he stopped and, after a minute's thought, turned into a side street and went 2 streets out of his way, possibly without an object or possibly to delay a minute and gain time. He walked, looking at the ground. Suddenly, someone seemed to whisper in his ear. He lifted his head and saw that he was standing at the very gate of the house. He had not passed it. He had not been near it since that evening. An overwhelming, unaccountable prompting drew him on. He went into the house, passed through the gateway, then into the first entrance on the right, and began mounting the familiar staircase to the 4th story. The narrow, steep staircase was very dark. He stopped at each landing and looked round him with curiosity. On the first landing, the framework of the window had been taken out. That wasn't so then, he thought. Here was the flat on the 2nd story where Nikolay and Dmitri had been working. It's shut up and the door newly painted. So it's to let. Then the 3rd story and the 4th. Here, he was perplexed to find the door of the flat wide open. There were men there. He could hear voices. He had not expected that. After brief hesitation, he mounted the last stairs and went into the flat. It too was being done up. There were workmen in it. This seemed to amaze him. He somehow fancied that he would find everything as he had left it, even perhaps the corpses in the same places on the floor. And now, bare walls, no furniture. It seemed strange. He walked to the window and sat down on the windowsill. There were 2 workmen, both young fellows, but one much younger than the other. They were preparing the walls with a new white paper covered with lilac flowers instead of the old dirty yellow one. Raskolnikov, for some reason, felt horribly annoyed by this. He looked at the new paper with dislike, as though he felt sorry to have it all so changed. The workmen had obviously stayed beyond their time, and now they were hurriedly rolling up their paper and getting ready to go home. They took no notice of Raskolnikov's coming in. They were talking. Raskolnikov folded his arms and listened. "She comes to me in the morning," said the elder to the younger, "very early, all dressed up. 'Why are you preening and twinkling?' says I. 'I am ready to do anything to please you, Tit Vasilievich.' That's a way of going on. And she dressed up like a regular fashion book." "And what is a fashion book?" the younger one asked. He obviously regarded the other as an authority. "A fashion book is a lot of pictures, colored, and they come to the tailors here every Saturday by post from abroad to show folks how to dress, the male sex as well as the female. There are pictures. The gentlemen are generally wearing fur coats, and for the ladies, fluffles. They are beyond anything you can fancy. There's nothing you can't find in Petersburg," the younger cried enthusiastically, "except father and mother. There's everything." "Except them, there's everything to be found, my boy," the elder declared sententiously. Raskolnikov got up and walked into the other room, where the strong box, the bed, and the chest of drawers had been. The room seemed to him very tiny without furniture in it. The paper was the same. The paper in the corner showed where the case of icons had stood. He looked at it and went to the window. The elder workman looked at him askance. "What do you want?" he asked suddenly. Instead of answering, Raskolnikov went into the passage and pulled the bell. The same bell, the same cracked note. He rang it a second and a third time. He listened and remembered. The hideous and agonizingly fearful sensation he had felt then began to come back more and more vividly. He shuddered at every ring, and it gave him more and more satisfaction. "Well, what do you want? Who are you?" the workman shouted, going out to him. Raskolnikov went inside again. "I want to take a flat," he said. "I'm looking around." "It's not the time to look at rooms at night, and you ought to come up with the porter." "The floors have been washed. Will they be painted?" Raskolnikov went on. "Is there no blood?" "What blood?" "Why, the old woman and her sister were murdered here. There was a perfect pool here. "But who are you?" the workman cried, uneasy. "Who am I?" "Yes." "You want to know? Come to the police station. I'll tell you." The workman looked at him in amazement. "It's time for us to go. We are late." "Come along, Alyoshka. We must lock up," said the elder workman. "Very well, come along," said Raskolnikov indifferently, and going out first, he went slowly downstairs. "Hey, porter," he cried in the gateway. At the entrance, several people were standing, staring at the passer-by. The two porters, a peasant woman, a man in a long coat, and a few others. Raskolnikov went straight up to them. "What do you want?" asked one of the porters. "Have you been to the police office?" "I've just been there. What do you want?" "Is it open?" "Of course." "Is the assistant there?" "He was there for a time." "What do you want?" Raskolnikov made no reply, but stood beside them, lost in thought. "He's been to look at the flat," said the elder workman, coming forward. "Which flat?" "Where we are at work." "Why have you washed away the blood?" says he. "There has been a murder here," says he, "and I've come to take it." And he began ringing the bell, all but broke it. "Come to the police station," says he. "I'll tell you everything there." He wouldn't leave us. The porter looked at Raskolnikov, frowning and perplexed. "Who are you?" he shouted as impressively as he could. "I am Rodion Raskolnikov, formerly a student. I live in Shill's house, not far from here. Flat number 14. Ask the porter, he knows me." Raskolnikov said all this in a lazy, dreamy voice, not turning around but looking intently into the darkening street. "Why have you been to the flat?" "To look at it." "What is there to look at?" "Take him straight to the police station." The man in the long coat jerked in abruptly. Raskolnikov looked intently at him over his shoulder and said in the same slow, lazy tones, "Come along." "Yes, take him," the man went on more confidently. Why was he going into that? What's in his mind, eh? "He's not drunk, but God knows what's the matter with him," muttered the workman. "But what do you want?" the porter shouted again, beginning to get angry in earnest. "Why are you hanging about?" "You funk the police station then," said Raskolnikov jeeringly. "How funk it? Why are you hanging about?" "He's a rogue," shouted the peasant woman. "Why waste time talking to him?" cried the other porter, a huge peasant in a full open coat and with keys on his belt. "Get along. He is a rogue and no mistake. Get along." And seizing Raskolnikov by the shoulder, he flung him into the street. He lurched forward but recovered his footing. looking at the spectators in silence, and walked away. "Strange man," observed the workman. "There are strange folks about nowadays," said the woman. "You should have taken him to the police station all the same," said the man in the long coat. "Better have nothing to do with him," decided the big porter. "A regular rogue. Just what he wants. You may be sure, but once take him up, you won't get rid of him. We know the sort." "Shall I go there or not?" thought Raskolnikov, standing in the middle of the thoroughfare at the crossroads, and he looked about him as though expecting from someone a decisive word, but no sound came. All was dead and silent like the stones on which he walked, dead to him alone. All at once, at the end of the street, 200 yards away, in a gathering dusk, he saw a crowd and heard talk and shouts. In the middle of the crowd stood a carriage. A light gleamed in the middle of the street. "What is it?" Raskolnikov turned to the right and went up to the crowd. He seemed to clutch at everything and smiled coldly when he recognized it, for he had fully made up his mind to go to the police station and knew that it would all soon be over. Chapter 7. An elegant carriage stood in the middle of the road with a pair of spirited grey horses. There was no one in it, and the coachman had got off his box and stood by. The horses were being held by the bridle. A mass of people had gathered around, the police standing in front. One of them held a lighted lantern which he was turning on something lying close to the wheels. Everyone was talking, shouting, exclaiming. The coachman seemed at a loss and kept repeating, "What a misfortune! Good Lord, what a misfortune!" Raskolnikov pushed his way in as far as he could and succeeded at last in seeing the object of the commotion and interest. On the ground, a man who had been run over lay apparently unconscious and covered with blood. He was very badly dressed, but not like a workman. Blood was flowing from his head and face. His face was crushed, mutilated and disfigured. He was evidently badly injured. "Merciful heaven," wailed the coachman. "What more could I do? If I'd been driving fast or had not shouted to him. But I was going quietly, not in a hurry. Everyone could see I was going along just like everybody else. A drunken man can't walk straight. We all know. I saw him crossing the street, staggering and almost falling. I shouted again and a second and a third time. Then I held the horses in and he fell straight under their feet. Either he did it on purpose or he was very tipsy. The horses were young and ready to take fright. They started. He screamed. That made them worse. That's how it happened." "That's just how it was," a voice in the crowd confirmed. "He shouted." "That's true. He shouted 3 times," another voice declared. 3 times it was. We all heard it," shouted a third. But the coachman was not very distressed and frightened. It was evident that the carriage belonged to a rich and important person who was awaiting it somewhere. The police, of course, were in no little anxiety to avoid upsetting his arrangements. All they had to do was to take the injured man to the police station and the hospital. No one knew his name.